Hello and welcome to episode 128 of the Arena Regulars podcast. I'm Zach,
And I'm Jeff.
and we're a source for drunken Magic the Gathering arena content.
That's right, just a couple of regular dudes drinking some irregular beers and talking about Magic the Gathering, in particular, the online client, MTG Arena.
And we have finally been able to play some of the new set, and so we're going to talk all about Wilds of Eldraine today. We'll be going through our first sips or our first thoughts of it. But first, Jeff needs to fix his camera if you're watching on
Sorry, it
YouTube.
wasn't in it
Um,
wasn't in the center.
that's totally fine. But first, normally each week we both bring a beer and rate them against each other. However, we've decided since the beer we had last time, we're doing something very similar. It's quite large, and we thought, we could just go with just having one. So this week we are going to be drinking and rating one single beer. And so, Jeff, what's on tap?
Okay, so if you're with us last week, you know I found a local beer maker. They go by Barrel Heart, and I met the guy that owns it or runs it at a farmer's market. And so last time we had their Goza, which is kind of like a salty saison. This one is an aged saison on cherries. It's called Cherries Aged Like Grace. Similar design to last time. And you know what? I read the poem last time, so I want to give you the honor of reading the poem this
Oh,
time.
all right. Okay. Let me walk among the fruit sellers of the farmer's barn and soak in that heady must. It is lively and bright, earthy and mellow, a perfume of cherries, aged like grace.
Mhm. So this is a saison with cherries, 6.3%. I'm excited to dig in. The last one was very, very good.
It
So,
was. I actually got to talk a little bit to whoever does their Instagram.
oh,
As
interesting.
we always do, we post our beers on Instagram. If you want to go check out any of the labels, it's at Arena Regulars. And I tend to tag the actual breweries, and they like repost us in their story. And I just said, hey, by the way, your beer is one of our favorites. We really loved it on the show, and we had a nice little back and forth. It was great. So in my mind, it is the brewer
The guy
himself
that
that
I
you
met.
met.
Yeah.
Very possibly not that person,
Mhm.
but I like to think about that. So anyway, I'm very excited for this, Jeff. Let's crack this open and get going with our 750 milliliter beer. All right.
Good.
Ooh, okay. Jeff took a while to find a bottle opener, and he used a spoon instead. A spoon. Um,
Spoon.
so I just wanted to. I was wondering how quickly you'd actually get it open, and it was within a few seconds. So, not the first time.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's not my first time.
I was gonna say I don't know if I've actually opened a beer with a spoon. Um, I tend to just have like the equipment I need, so I'm not worried about it.
Oh, look at
That wasn't really a dig on, well, it
it.
wasn't not a dig on purpose, but it was a little bit of a
My
dig.
personal favorite is to use another beer. You can like get the leverage
Do
there.
that thing
It has happened to me, of course, that the one that's upside down has opened.
opens.
But that's pretty rare. I'm pretty,
Hmm.
pretty, pretty good at it now. So
Yeah,
um, it's only at the most embarrassing possible occasions where the top one opens.
of course, when you're
Yeah.
showing it to everyone.
Yeah, if I'm
Um,
just at home, like doing a draft or something, I have my paper towel set up in case it happens. Obviously, it's
mhm.
not going to happen then. But
Yeah.
if I'm in somebody's new apartment with their nice new carpet, I'm like, look at my trick.
Yeah.
And that's when
Fuck
it
it up.
happens.
Yeah. Classic. That's just how the world works.
Mhm.
Um, but Jeff, we do have some magic news. This weekend, September 16th and 17th, is the Arena Open Wilds of Eldraine Limited. Seems super sweet. Go check it out and hope to win $2,000. Um, as well as starting on September 19th, I believe, Magic Arena is turning 5 years old, kind of. 5 years since the beta officially started.
Right.
Um, so that's pretty cool. And apparently they're going to give out some rewards in our inboxes on Arena. So I guess it's a way to get you to check in with your Arena account every day to see what you got. I don't know. Who knows how good or bad it'll be, but hey, free stuff's free stuff, so I'll take it. Yeah. Sweet. Jeff, let's just jump right into things because we have a new set to talk about, which is always the most exciting thing. And Wilds of Eldraine. What have you been doing so far? How's it feel like? Give me everything.
All right, everything. That's it, eh?
Hmm.
The set feels Eldraine. It has
Hmm.
like a lot of the characteristics that the previous set have if you played that. But like they nailed it with the feel again. They always do. But the sort of magical story land is once again present here, and the
Hmm.
mechanics do a lot of the heavy lifting there for me, like food brings back memories and adventures with the new take on it. So I think just in terms of like the overall feel and certainly aesthetic, um, it's great. It feels
Yeah.
like exactly what they were shooting for. I think it is reminiscent of the previous one without being sort of a mirror image of it,
Hmm.
which is always nice when they do. Like that's one of the difficulties of returning to planes is you want to strike that balance of, well, I want to give people that love this plane the things they loved,
Hmm.
but I also don't want it to just be a carbon copy because not everyone did love original our first trip to Eldraine. So
Yeah.
yeah, I would say the overall, like, without getting into the specifics of different cards or formats, I think the set feels good.
Yeah. I definitely agree. So far, I'm liking it a ton.
Mhm.
It's been so much fun, and I've really only been playing limited. Um, but agree on all the same fronts. I think I might like it better than the first time we went, just because I like how they figured out that adventures is just good, and it doesn't have to be
Mhm.
like this color combination is adventure like, or we need cards that care about adventures like in a very overt way,
Right.
because you don't. There are only a couple cards that actually mention like things being on adventures or something. And it's basically like there's like that one green, it's like a 4 mana 4/4 with vigilance, and it has haste if you have a creature on adventure, which
Right.
things like that I wish we had more subtlety with it the first time around.
Mhm.
Because the first time we went, it was like, hey, you get to double all your adventure triggers, or when you adventure, you get
Yeah.
to draw a card, and all that stuff
Edgewall
was,
and Keeper's a little on the nose.
yeah, those kind of things were like a little bit too overt to be like, hey, if you have a card that gives you card advantage, get more card advantage. Um,
Yeah.
so this is it's more appropriate the way that they understand how that mechanic works now, which obviously makes sense because it's the second time, or technically like the third or fourth time they've done adventures, including supplemental sets. Um, but yeah,
Yeah.
like limited has been a blast, and we were talking last week about how we thought all the like mechanics fit so well together, but they really, really do. Like
Yeah.
it just feels like everything meshes so well that you're constantly accidentally triggering things you didn't think you would be able to trigger, which happens in limited often enough, but this feels like, oh man, this is just great. Every mechanic just feels like, yeah, I don't even have to really build a whole deck only trying to do this one thing. It's just like I can do a bunch of different stuff, and a lot of the cards that I like fit into multiple categories, um, which
Yeah.
I love.
Which is nice during the draft as well because it lets you pivot. You can think your food, and then you're like, oh, actually, the black green food isn't really showing up, but
Hmm.
I'm not left with a pile of useless crap, you
Hmm.
know.
Yeah.
Whereas sometimes when you have this, like, oh, like Edgewall Innkeeper sucks in a deck that doesn't have a lot of adventures. That's
Hmm.
that's true. So if you don't end up in the adventures deck, it's garbage. Whereas the cards in this set are a little more forgiving of trying to find a lane.
Yeah. Uh, with the exception to like the rat strategy is the only one
Yeah.
that's like, hey, you need cards that say rat on them, otherwise your deck isn't going to work. Um, but they even just, obviously having bodies around to bargain with, or um, a lot of the rat cards end up celebrating and helping you out in other ways. Like it's it's great. I'm loving it.
Yeah.
Speaking of
So
pivoting, well, I had a quick anecdote from, I think last night I was drafting. Um, I like pack one, pick one. I think it's called Gumdrop Poisoner. It's,
mhm.
yeah, it's that like 3 mana, 3/2 with lifelink it's black. It has an adventure where you create a food token. But then when it enters the battlefield, it has target up to one target creature gets -X -X, where X is the amount of life you gained that turn. So the idea is like, um, eat the food on turn 5, and then play it, and you kill a 3/3 and get your own 3/2 with lifelink. Um, and I ended up originally thinking, oh, this will be good in a food deck because that's the main way you can gain life in the set, and I'm pushing pretty hard to try to be in this food strategy. And then as I went through the draft, I ended up picking up like a Griffin Airy, and I was like, oh, this was gonna be good probably. And then I
Yeah.
ended up getting another one, and then it went almost straight right into like white black, but being able to gain life in different ways so that I could actually, my main game plan is just making a bunch of griffins, which
Mhm.
worked okay to middling success, I'd say. I think I went
Yeah.
3/3. Um,
Okay.
but so it wasn't like amazing, but it did feel super fun and new, especially because Griffin Airy is just a card that I initially saw in the Enchanting Tales and was like, that's boring. But then in the context of this set, it's like, oh, actually, it's really fun and good. It's just now every food reads pay 2, gain 3 life, and to get a 2/2 flying griffin. I'm like, this is a, I don't know. It snuck up on me, even though I already knew that that's how that was going to work out. Just being able to pivot in that way in that draft made it really fun, even though
Yeah.
I didn't do super well. But
Yeah, there is a fair amount of that going on where, especially with the I forget what the name of this set's mystical archive is, but with the additional cards that are not standard legal
Enchanting
that are
Tales.
in this set. Yes, thanks. Um, enough of them are like you could build a whole archetype or new deck around this card, but because it's an uncommon or even a rare, that's not going to happen super often.
Mm-hmm.
But it gives you this, oh, sometimes, black red is just this other deck that's built around this enchantment. Like sometimes it is a sacrifice deck because it got the enchantment that lets you sacrifice creatures to gain life and draw cards.
Mm-hmm.
Um, even though people are always complaining, oh, black red is always sacrifice, so they couldn't completely move away from it.
Mm-hmm.
They made it like a token strategy and then gave it sacrifice outlets.
In a special
um,
slot, yeah.
yeah, but sometimes like black red is sacrifice instead of rats because of this powerful enchantment that's
Mm-hmm.
only really good if you want to sacrifice. It's not like good enough on its own kind of thing. And I actually appreciate that. I think the fact that each color pair kind of has a second mode that's not going to happen that often, but is something you
Mm-hmm.
can pivot to, or like, oh, I'm black white life gain now,
Mm-hmm.
because I got this rare and these uncommons. Like,
Yeah.
okay, this draft I'm black white life gain.
Yeah, I do think that a good number of the Enchanting Tales actually fit really well into the set, more so than some of the other ones we've seen in the past,
Yeah,
where it's like, now we get to print a cool artifact in a retro frame, even though it's not very good in draft. It feels like more of the Enchanting Tales like work
yeah, it
out.
feels like it was designed with the Enchanting Tales in mind, rather than like, let's design a draft format and then shoehorn in some staples into this
Exactly.
slot that people want reprinted. It feels a little more thought out this time, where
Hmm.
they're like, okay, we have to get staples people want, obviously. That's the point of this kind of thing. but also let's make sure they play with the limited archetypes and like
Mhm.
actually make sense.
Yeah, and obviously some are better than other ones, um,
Yeah.
but I they've just been seeming super cool, um, and I like it. Even though I think I picked up a Primal Vigor once, that's like a 5 mana enchantment that doubles up on counters and tokens or something. Um, and I was like, or maybe it's just like counters. I can't remember. And it was the type of thing where you'd be like, this seems sweet. And then as you're putting the deck together, you're like, 5 mana for a do nothing enchantment is not going to be good. Um,
Yeah.
and so
I
you're
saw
like,
that card. I don't remember if my opponent played it or if it was in a draft, but I saw it and I was like, seems awful. So thank you.
yeah, and
So,
no. Yeah, if one or more tokens would be put onto the battlefield, twice that many of those tokens are put on the battlefield. And then same with +1/+1 counters. So I was thinking more so like I guess it doubles up your food tokens, but I was thinking more it doubles up rolls, and I wanted to see whether I could put rolls on multiple creatures, or if it
mm,
would just trigger rolls twice on the same creature, and you just get one of it, and then it would just
right.
be kind of useless. So then I was like, what is the use case for this card actually? Um,
Rats. You splash it in your
Rats.
rats.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Double the rats.
Because Rats wants to play an off-color big do nothing enchantment.
Yeah.
uh, but yeah, anyway, I am excited to be like continuing to build my collection and all that, and like go into standard soon. I won't have some much time to play arena over the next few weeks, but then after that, it'll be more exciting. So
Mhm.
that will be a focus of mine. Standard.
Yeah. Have you, in terms of the limited format, you say you've been playing all
Hmm.
limited. How does it
Yes.
feel for you in terms of like speed and whatnot? I've found it kind of difficult to attack profitably and
Yeah.
win matches that way.
It is very grindy. Oh gosh, I just played a match. I was playing Rats, which I haven't played very much of because I always end up in white for some reason. So this was a new territory for me.
Mhm.
Um, sorry, I end up in white for some reason, not like it's the color I always want to play, but whatever.
Yeah.
Um,
I don't have time to play color pairs. I'm not interested
yeah,
anymore, man. I get like
no,
one draft every once in a while. I'm like, no way I'm playing fucking Simics. Get out
yeah,
of here with
get the fuck
tables.
out of here.
Stop pushing me into
Oh,
that.
I was no wait, side tangent. So I went and played a paper event on Monday. So I actually haven't drafted in a while. I got to get it in person. But it was with some of our friends, and one of our friends had beaten me with a blue green deck. And we were outside, and I was just kind of bitching about it, just being like, "Man!" And you just like beat the shit out of me with like the worst color pair, like just the worst one. And he kind of looked at me, being like, "Oh, is it like considered the worst in this draft format?" I was like, "No, no, 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 no. I don't
No,
know that.
it's
It's
considered the worst in the game.
in my opinion, I don't like that color pair. It's not a color pair I like." He's like, "Oh, okay." I was like, "It has no, no, no. It's it's
I
not
have
like
no idea. I haven't checked 17 lines.
yeah,
Maybe
yeah,
it's good.
yeah." And like it could be, but anyway, I was just laughing because every once in a while you run into someone who actually likes blue green, and I just assume everyone hates it because we do.
Right. Assume you're gonna get laughs from that one.
Yeah, and in fact, people are like, no, that's the best color combination. And you're like, oh no. Um,
Did we just become enemies?
yeah. Though a lot of times it does seem to be like commander players. I'm like, oh
Right.
right, because it's so
Yeah.
good in your format. That makes
Yeah.
sense.
You mean it literally just is the best in
Hmm.
the in the games that you play.
Yeah. Um, but no, sorry. The story I was actually trying to tell was I was playing Rats, and they're I'm doing all right getting through and like getting them down to like 3 life every turn, but that's because they continued to play more and more food cards. And I have Totem Taunts, which is like the Rakdos legendary creature that when your
Yeah.
creature, yeah, they when they die, you make rats and then you can give them death touch. So I'm attacking in with my rats every single turn and basically just trading every rat with every card they block with because they're blocking a lot, which is very surprising to me. But I'm like, sure, okay. I'll
Yeah.
spend my entire turn just swapping my rats with your real cards. Um, but they are able to play three of the like the green adventure dude that has a black adventure. It's like a the uncommon. The black side gives a creature -2/-2, and then it's a 5 mana 5/5. A ginger beard, no, not ginger beard, gingerbread hunter. Um,
Oh yeah.
I've been reading that as ginger beard hunter, and I was like, oh, that's cool. Um,
He hunts
ginger
red
beards,
beards.
yeah. Uh, anyway, yeah. So I was fighting through three of these where they're like killing a good creature and then making a 5/5 and a food token. Then I attack in, and then they block and they kill it, and then they gain three more life, and then they play another one, and it just goes on and on and on. And it was just brutal. And I was looking in their graveyard because they kept playing more and more food cards, and I was like, they must have gained like 12 to like 15 life or something. And I'm like, this is nuts. You should have been
Yeah.
dead so long ago.
Yeah.
Um, and I ended up being able to top deck the card I needed to like get back into the game and beat them. But I was like, that was crazy. Like
So much harder than it needed to be.
this should have been over like 5 turns ago, and in any other format it would have. So I do think that yes, going aggro and doing that kind of thing can be really difficult, um, because there is a bunch of just incidental life gain, like we've said for a while, that just happens. Um, there also
Yeah.
happens to be like a great common white combat trick that gives lifelink and can do a huge swing and like flip the whole game on its head. So
Yeah. I so I haven't looked up anything or,
mhm, me neither.
plugged into what other people think about this format. My impression, based on the drafts that I'm in, is that it must be, if not sort of uh, like decided. I suspect there's rumblings going on about red being the worst color in this set
Hmm.
because red is fucking wide open in every draft I've done.
Hmm.
So everyone must have gotten some memo that I did not get. But like I cannot draft without the pack being like, hey, why don't you go red? Why don't you play red? Here's some red cards. And I'm like, what is wrong? Red must suck. That's the only way like this could be happening. And almost every draft, blue red spells is the archetype that my
Is
seat wants to be.
hmm.
And I hate that archetype in every set that it's ever in. And so I'm like, no, I'm gonna take green black food.
Yeah.
My deck sucks at the
Yeah.
end. Like,
Uh,
oh, what's worse, like doing poorly with the deck you like or doing well with the deck you don't like? But
yeah, but
um,
do you really like the deck when you don't get all the cards that you want for it?
yeah, but I don't know that I'm not going to get all the cards
That's
when I
true.
start on my stubborn
You're
endeavor. And then by the end, it's like, well, I can't switch into blue red spells now. It's way
mhm.
too late for that.
Yeah, you got to go early. Even when we were at drafting in person, that was wide open, like blue red spells.
Oh,
And I
it's
was like,
always open.
mhm. After I see a couple cards, I'm like, damn it, I should have gone blue because
There's some
I
weird card that wants to like swap its power and toughness or some shit. I'm like,
oh
no,
no,
stop giving me this.
those cards are weird. But
Yeah.
anyway, no, I do like the blue red spells deck in this format actually. Um, though to be fair, as we're going through all these things, I do think it's important to know that like one of the best uncommons in the set is a red card. So
The
that's
recruiter or whatever, right?
yeah, Imodane's
Yeah,
recruiters like
the Boros
fucking
one.
yeah, it's
Yeah, that
bomb.
one's insane. I saw
That
that one, but that was passed to me like fifth pick or something.
yeah,
I was like, I don't know what's happening because this card seems to be ludicrous.
it's
But
insane.
and I played it and I was like, indeed, it's ridiculous.
Do you know what this card secretly has written on it that people have been reading and forget isn't actually on the card?
What's
The
that?
the reason that people have like slept on this card early was that for whatever reason, when they read this card, it says the enters a battlefield effect says when Imodane's recruiter enters the battlefield, if two or more creature or non-land permanents enter the battlefield as well. Creatures you control get +1/+0 and haste. It has like a celebration line of
Oh,
text in there
like
in your mind that's not there.
right. It just doesn't say that.
It just doesn't say that. And
Yeah. I
so,
thought you were gonna say it was like other creatures, so it doesn't give
mm-mm.
itself haste, but it
No, no, no,
does.
no, no. I think the amount of people I've talked to who are like, yeah, I thought it was a celebration thing, but it just
Hmm.
happens. I'm like, yeah, it's really
It
good.
would suck if it was celebration.
But there's something like the fact that you make two so you can trigger celebration makes you think that
Right.
it's a celebration
Interesting.
card as you just
Yeah.
like scan through it. You're like, nope, it's just a really solid three
It's
mana,
just
3/2 with
busted.
haste, that wins you games. Amount of times where I like attack in and I'm like, I'm fine on the crackback. There's no way I can lose. And you're like, oh, never mind. If you gain like a good 7 power, yeah, then it will
Yeah.
die.
Yeah, it could kill me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hopefully the card wasn't like sitting in exile, the adventure zone when you
No,
made
no, no,
that
no, no,
decision.
no. It's not like,
Yeah,
huh?
nothing could possibly kill me. Oh, they had another creature and that one that I knew about. Oh, well, never mind.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't had someone do play the knights and then also play the recruiter to have it all attack, but I'm waiting for
Yeah.
that to happen. That really sweet 8 mana play. Um,
I have played it just as a like a 3 drop
yeah,
before without adventuring it.
3/2
But
with haste. It hurts a
that
little
felt
bit.
bad.
Yeah, it hurts. It hurts
But I
when
think it
you're
was the right play. And I did win that game like
okay.
mostly because of that early damage I was able to get in.
Mm,
But I was just like, oh, the
yeah,
daggers to
but
make that play was like, it's hovering, like, do
mhm.
I release? Do I release? All right.
Oh, it's so hard because like is that 3 damage plus whatever it could have been a little bit more with your 2 drop. Like would that like you don't know if they're just gonna play a food and then like gain it back.
Yeah. Or just like a 4/4. And then you're like,
Hmm.
oh,
You're like,
really wish
meh.
I'd held this.
Yeah, but
But I just had so much gas in my hand and no 3 drops. So I was like, yeah, all right, we're gonna play this as a 3 drop. And
mhm.
we have a 4 and we have a 5.
Yeah,
Like,
there you go. Like, hey, that's what adventures do. They're good at that.
yeah. But I was even saying before, and I think it's panned out, that I
Mm,
like this design. That it doesn't always like it used to always just curve into it.
yeah.
Adventures 2 and Creatures 3.
Hmm.
Um, the awkwardness has come up for me on a few different cards of the adventure is expensive and the creature is cheap.
Hmm.
Because especially in limited, you're incentivized to just play the creature
Yeah.
on curve. But then you're like, oh man, I'm giving up this sweet, sweet adventure.
Hmm. And you're like, and I just never get that back. Um, yeah, I think they did a good job with some of the numbers and all of it. I mean, we mentioned this before, but eh, none of them feel super busted. All of them feel really good and fun. I
Yeah.
just I've been having a lot of fun with this set. I know it's like only the first week or so, but that's great.
I would say
Also,
the Boros one does feel a little busted. I think that's like the mythic uncommon.
yes.
But I like that because the set is kind of board stally and not
Hmm.
super aggro. So I like that the best uncommon is the aggro card
Yes, that's it.
because it helps
It's
you break through some of these board stalls.
You're right. You're right. It's not like the 3 mana 2/2 draw card thing where you're just
Mhm.
like, yeah, this is just kind of a way to cycle through my deck and have more bodies to clog up the board. Um, I did want to ask, have you been playing with Candy Trail with the 1 mana food clue artifact?
I always take it being like this will be a 23rd playable kind of thing, and then
Hmm.
it always gets cut. It's kind of like, opt or whatever, where
Yeah,
I think it's fine to play, and when other people play it, it's like, okay, but it never ends up making the cut for me because they're just, yeah, you have so many playables and formats these
it's
days that
it's so true. Like it's so difficult. The amount of playables is insane,
Mhm.
um, which really makes you need to focus because
Like
all the
normally I'm
cards
making
just
cuts, right? And so it's just
always
the
making
easiest
cuts.
cut is like, ah, get Candy Trail out of here.
Get the stupid thing.
It's not gonna be in the final
Um,
40.
yeah, it actually ended up being it fit in my obviously my Griffin Airy deck because I just needed any like clues I could, and it's something that finds me my Griffin Ares because it scries and draws a card. So that ended up being way more helpful. So now I have a little bit more of like a when my opponent plays it, I'm like, that's gonna be annoying. You're just gonna get to like get some like filter some stuff and get some good cards. And I'm like,
Yeah,
I don't like that because I know you're gonna have time to crack it. So
yeah.
or
Annoying is the right word for it.
yes,
But it's
I'm.
like, do I want to put this in my deck just to be annoying? Or,
Mhm,
is it worth it?
exactly. Um, there are some like have you run into really cool combos in limited or just in the set in general?
Uh, so sort of.
Or I
One
guess
of my
synergy,
actually
not just combos,
was
but
it my first draft ever? My first draft ever, I think. And I think it might have been my first game. It might have been my first ever limited game of this format.
mm-hmm,
But my opponent plays Impact Tremors on
mm-hmm,
turn 2, which is whenever a creature ETBs, it hits me for 1.
mm-hmm.
And then they played on turn 3 Skitter the Rat King or whatever that makes a rat every turn.
Oh.
And so and I didn't have a removal spell in my hand,
Mm-hmm.
which basically meant I was on quite the clock now because
Yeah.
every single turn a rat was going to be made, which will ping me that turn for like almost gave the rats haste
Mm-hmm.
because it pings me that turn for 1, and then they're going to be attacking with these rats, and then literally the next, at least next 2, I think 3 in a row, their next 3 plays were the red removal spell that puts a young hero token.
Oh
So
gosh.
now their rats are all young heroes, and I have no blockers because they keep dying. And I
Mm-hmm.
just got like absolutely swarmed by this like ridiculous like turn 2, turn 3. Even though I don't think Impact Tremors is very good, um, it looked really good here.
Mm-hmm.
Although realistically, I was just going to lose to the Rat King making a creature return because I couldn't kill it.
Yeah.
Um,
I
but that was a fun little combo that I was just like,
yeah.
what just happened to me? Was that a normal game of limited? Like it didn't feel like a normal game of limited.
Definitely not.
Yeah,
Yeah, cut in ends up being a lot. That's the red removal spell. That like ends up being much better like for what I expect a 4 mana deal the same amount of damage as its mana cost spell.
yeah,
You know, it always
yeah.
feels like, oh, that card sucks. But then
I
like
think young hero tokens are just much better than I thought they were
they
originally. I
are.
think my brain thought it stopped at 3, not
No.
it stopped at 4.
Hmm.
Um,
And it's also it cares about toughness, not power.
yeah,
I always thought it cared about power. So like if you do have like the Sir Ginger, it goes up and up and up because that's a 3/1 and then it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Um, so you
or
end
even
up
just the 3/1 green card that like comes back later when enchantments die or whatever.
yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, whatever that the elf is called. Uh elf thing, I think. But
Yes,
yeah.
Elf Thing is the correct
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
card
It's
name.
pretty sick.
Yeah.
No, that's great. I do think Impact Tremors is good in that rat deck. Like if I see it, I will be like, oh, this card's for my deck.
Yeah.
I should have it.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm not
I
even sure my opponent was playing a rat deck that had
oh, it just
this. I
well, I
mean, I
guess
guess they
that's
were black
true.
red, so probably they
There was
like it
rat
was the only
synergies.
creature they played. I
The
was like,
only
man,
one
if
they
I'd had a
had to play.
removal spell, this game would have been so different.
Yeah. Um, I've been having a lot of fun with different like white green, not just okay. Is it fun? I'm not doing the combos or the tricks. That's what I have to say. They are getting done to me, but I
Mm.
still think they're super cool, and I really want to do more of them. But like a really easy one is like cooped up is the pacifism of the set, but you can
Yeah,
also pay 3 and put a trigger on the stack that exiles the enchanted creature. Now you can put that on the stack with full control and instant speed bargain your cooped up, and it will still exile the creature, which is
nice.
very awesome. Um, as well as there is a rare that I've decided I will not be talking about in Worth a Slot, so I will talk about it right now. Um, but have you played against Yenna Redtooth Regent? It's the uh, 2 green white for the 4/4 legendary creature Elf Noble at rare.
No.
And it has an ability you can pay to and tap it and choose target enchantment you control that doesn't have the same name as another permanent you control. Create a token that's a copy of it, except it isn't legendary. If the token is an aura, untap Yena, and then scry 2, activate only as a sorcery. Originally, I was reading this and I was thinking, wow, this is no good. I don't like this at all. It's a 4 mana 4/4, and you have to wait a whole turn to do the whole thing. But playing against it when you don't have removal, it was horrible. It was like, hey, this creature, I made it monstrous, or I made it into a monster earlier. And then Yena comes down, and Yena like taps, copies the monster token, puts it on herself. She untaps. Now there's 2 creatures that are like 4 and 5 power with trample, and they both attack. And then you can bargain the one off of Yena to use it for an ability, and then make another copy, do it again, and you're like, gee, what is happening? It's like it was so annoying, and that was just with somebody using just like the roll tokens. I was like, if these were
Right.
even better enchantments, like this is awful. That's
That sounds
also
pretty sweet.
it's super sweet. Um, and so it ended up going like much higher in my books. Originally, I was like, that's just not a good card. And after playing against it, I was like, that's a pretty sweet card.
Hmm.
It's definitely a glass cannon, but those are I have a really soft spot for those types of archetypes. So um, seems very awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, at the very least, it's a 4/4 for 4 unlimited.
Yeah,
Can't be that bad.
can't be that bad. Um, Before we move on to our worthless slots, which I do want to get to soon,
Hmm.
um, how much do you hate gruff triplets?
I actually have never encountered it.
That
And
is lucky. I think we talked about this
yeah,
last
I've played an
episode.
amount that I should have encountered it.
Hmm.
I'm sure that some of my opponents had it in their deck, and
Somewhere.
I was fortunate enough not to have it cast against me.
Yeah. Um, it's a beating. It's one of the reasons. So last week I had talked about playing against gruff triplets. What? Sorry, gruff triplets.
Rift Truplets.
Gruff triplets,
Yeah.
and being able to fight through it. And it was totally fine. That was the first time I encountered that card, and I just happened to have 2 bounce spells in my hand, and so it ended up going perfectly fine for me because I can also block correctly, so I don't die and also don't make them huge. Um, but boy, playing against it when you only have 1 removal spell is awful. And it's just regular. You're like, I'm dead. Like, I'm dead
Yeah.
next turn. Like, I can't even kill it when you attack. Like, maybe I could try to tap one of them and stun it or something, but like,
That's the thing.
it's.
It needs like a very specific circumstance, right? Like, oh, I have 2
Hmm.
exile removal spells.
Yeah.
And even in that situation, you're still down a card. Like,
Hmm.
they
Yeah.
still have an extra creature from playing this, and
It's
you
just.
cast 2. Like you basically got 3 for 1 because
Hmm.
you got 2 for 1 on the literally just 2 for 1, and then they still have a creature around. So
Yeah.
um, yeah, it's ridiculous. Like it feels like the card is from your standpoint, if the opponent plays it, best case scenario, they 3 for 1 you.
Hmm.
Most scenarios, you just lose.
Yeah. Basically, yeah, but yeah, absolutely, yeah. Luckily, the bounce spells I was playing do replace themselves because they're the blue ones
Right.
that.
That's like the only way to not get
Mhm.
3 for 1 by this
So that ends up being really, really, really helpful. So I have been seeing that card be just wheel, not gruff triplets, but the removal spell, the blue one in the
thing.
basically that is it deck. Hey, that's one way to get through that. So there you go.
I did get totally wrecked by, I'm not going to remember the name of it, but it was a creature that wiped my entire board when it came into play. Um, it
What?
was, yeah, they had
What color is
basically
it?
my opponent was missing land drops. So what they were doing was tapping their artifact to loot and then create a treasure to like bank
Hmm.
up mana.
Yeah.
And they were looting creatures into the yard like crazy. And then they played this thing that exiled a bunch of creatures and like gave my whole team -4/-4 or something. Like they were dead next turn, and I was just slamming creatures onto the board, thinking there's
Oh.
no way to lose. And then there's this black creature that you can exile some creatures from your graveyard, which my opponent was able to do because they'd just been looting all game
Hmm.
and just wiped my board clean. I was like, well, that's one way to lose this game, I suppose. I thought there was no way, but
Yeah.
all right.
So I found the card. So it's called Spectre of Mortality. And
That would
for
be the one.
you listeners, be like wary. I haven't seen that. This is the first time I've actually read this card, honestly. Um,
Yeah, it got me good, let's just
yeah.
say.
So don't get got by Spectre of Mortality. It's a 5 mana 3/3 with flying, and when it enters, you can do exactly what Jeff said: exile one or more creature cards from your graveyard, and then each other creature
The other
gets
thing is my
-X.
opponent had only mountains in play. So I had no idea.
Oh.
They were, and they discarded
Oh.
only red cards. So I was like, what could they possibly do?
That's the best. That's so funny. Playing
Yeah.
off of the treasures from the freaking tower.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh, that's so good. That's so funny. Holy
And I
shit.
did not need to play the last creature or whatever for lethal. I was
Mhm.
just slamming my hand. The game was already over in my mind because my opponent's
Mhm.
sitting there with some stupid artifact looting, and
That
I'm
doesn't do
playing
anything.
creatures every turn.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
So you're like,
and it
whatever.
turns out the fact that they like wiping my board, they still would have lost, I think, because I actually had backups to play. But
Mhm.
wiping my board and a creature at the same time
Yeah.
was exactly enough for them to stabilize.
Mm.
I was just like, huh, well, there's a card. Not gonna
That's
say I
it.
won't lose to that card again, but
Yeah. Well, if my opponent just starts to dump creatures into the graveyard, I will be prepared
yeah,
for that. Um, yeah, because not only it's either what I thought you were going to say, because it's either Spectre of Mortality to wipe your board, but also this card's not nearly as good. But Lich Knight's Conquest is the 5 mana sorcery where you can sacrifice any number of bargain targets and then get that many creatures back from your graveyard onto the battlefield.
that
Which
would have been funny as well.
yeah, just like, hey, I made all these treasures, and now I'm going to sack all the treasures and my tower to play every creature that I discarded.
Yeah,
And you're like, oh
that's like
no.
the living end deck from Modern or whatever, where you just
Oh,
cycle
right.
creatures and then
Hmm. And then they're
bring them all
back.
back.
Anyway, I I've been loving this format, and I know there's a ton more to explore. So
I still
it
need to
is
figure out aggro. I keep
Boros.
falling a little short. Yeah, I mean, obviously, if you draft an insane Boros deck, that's how you aggro. But I want to learn just how can I always be aggressive?
Hmm.
Like, how do I draft aggro? Because the food tokens make it a really they really do make a difference.
Yeah.
And I find I'm always like 5 damage short, something like that.
Yes.
And I get off to a hot start. I'm feeling really good. Something comes down, gums up the board, and there's like food tokens sitting around. My opponent always seems to have time to get them. So
Hmm. I do
maybe need to
think
prioritize like ways of punching through the ground more, or not
just
sure.
just open Goblin Bombardment, man. Come on.
Yeah, that'd be
Um,
an option as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that and they also have the other enchanting tales. What's the 2 mana red enchantment that when you attack with creatures with power 2 or less, it deals a damage to your opponent? That one.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Yeah, so I actually one of my most successful drafts was me forcing rats from the beginning, but basically what happened was so I like to do this. I like to try to just force an archetype in the early stages and just see what happens.
mhm,
Because sometimes forcing is not actually a bad idea.
mhm.
Some formats allow that. But basically what happened in this one is I got a bunch of those stupid enchantments. So I got that one.
Mhm.
Then I got the one that's like whenever a creature attacks, gets +1/+0 for each other creature that shares a creature
Oh
type with
yeah,
it.
I had that card too. Yeah,
Yeah, and
yeah.
so I'm like staring at these two cards. I'm like, all right, well, I guess I'm doing rats because it's
This is what this
I have
says.
to
Yeah.
now. And then I got the black enchantment that lets me sack things and draw a card. And so I was like, well, I'm fully all in on this, even though I haven't seen a single rat card
Hmm.
yet. And I got very few. Like clearly two other drafters were in rats or something because I got
Yeah.
almost no rat generators. But you know what? The deck just worked. It just every game it just played out. I made some rats, I played a couple of these dumb enchantments, and there was literally nothing my opponent could do. It was just way too much damage. And I was
Uh,
like, I didn't get seven. I think I got six, which is way more than that deck deserved. So that's why it's like way up in my head as being this
mm,
like excellent draft because I honestly thought 03. I think
yeah.
I had seven creatures in the deck. Like it was not a good deck. I should not have
Yeah.
forced
Hey, all these
rats.
enchantments that care about creatures on the battlefield. I don't need to play creatures.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah.
don't need to.
I mean,
Um,
I think I had some spells that can create creatures or whatever, but
yeah,
like
totally.
if
That
you
you
looked at
count
the
as thing.
stats, it would say like seven
Yeah.
creatures in the deck or something. Um, I even had like Lord Skitters, whatever, which comes to it's basically like Phyrexian Arena for two
Hmm.
mana, but you have to have a pantsed up creature.
Yes. A pain
And so
step.
I had like all of these enchantments that really, really need you to have creatures.
Creatures.
And then I had a couple of creatures, but I just happened to draw, the rat
The
that makes
nuts.
another rat and like
Yeah.
stuff like that. And things just went my way. And so that's
Hmm.
the draft I remember the most. As the lesson was, don't force rats. But somehow I did that and came out with a 6-win deck. So
Amazing.
do force rats?
Yeah.
Like,
I say yes. I say yes
yeah,
for
just
threads.
force rats every draft.
That's great. Um, awesome. Well,
Has
Jeff.
it just been enough drafts where I hadn't gotten rats yet? And I was like,
Mhm.
fuck this, I'm playing rats now. That's
Oh,
the deck I wanted to play the whole time.
yeah.
And the packs are always like, why don't you try blue red? And I'm like, fuck you, packs.
Fuck you, pegs. I'll play red though, but not these ones that say instants and sorceries on them.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
not interested in that.
okay, Jeff. I think we should move on to our worth of slots and
Let's do
get
it.
rolling on that.
Yeah,
As always, I forgot the ceremonial toonie wherever it is. I have a
oh,
bottle cap though. All right. Do you want to flip a bottle cap to see who goes first?
sure.
All right. You call it in the air.
Okay, Feral Heart logo.
Yes.
All right,
You got it. It's the top.
so I get to go first.
You get to choose. And we'll snake
I shall
draft it.
defer to you.
Okay. All right. So,
Should we explain what these are in case
oh
people
yeah.
don't
Oh shit. Sorry. Yeah, yeah. Jeff, do you want to explain what worthless lots are and what we do with our first sips episodes?
Would love to. So worthless slots are where we take a step back, we look at the set as a whole, we consider all of the intricacies, all of the different connections the cards have with
Mm-hmm.
each other, with the past, 2 or 3 years of cards in standard, explore all of that, and we curate a perfect list for you guys of the cards that we think are most likely to see some play. Are they worth a slot in your deck? Our answer is yes. Now, we have some categories here to make things more interesting based on the well known sport of basketball, if you've heard
Mm-hmm.
of it.
Yeah, I
Um,
think so.
yeah. So the first one is a layup. This is basically, we're not going out on a limb here. These are the best cards in the set. Everyone kind of knows they're good. It's not a secret, but we're just calling them out. The one that speaks to us in particular, as this will see play. It's worth a slot in your deck. It's a good card. Then we have a 3-pointer. These are cards that are usually they're powerful, but they need things to go a certain way in order for them to actually pierce the metagame. Um, they're good cards, but hey, maybe there's no whatever deck for it
Mm-hmm.
in this standard format. Then we have one of my favorites, the half court shot. This is basically it just is cards that Zach and I wish were good, but they're not,
Mm-hmm.
is what it tends to be. But every once in a while, one of them actually makes a splash or like does pretty well. And so it's fun to have these. These are unlikely to actually make their way into the metagame. But we like them anyways, and we want to talk about them.
That's right. Um, So Jeff is deferring, so I have to go first. Um, Now, Jeff, I know there's one card that we both are probably looking at, and it seems very obvious, which is exactly what a layup is. However,
Yeah.
I did pick a different card that we've
Oh,
also talked about before that I will pick for this. It's very on brand for me, so obviously I have to. We're dipping our toes back into the foxhole with Werefox
I knew it.
Bodyguard.
Yeah.
Uh, One white for the 2/2 elf fox knight creature with flash. When it enters the battlefield, exile up to one other target non-fox creature until it leaves, and then you can pay 1 and a white to sacrifice it, and you gain 2 life. So last episode we did talk about this card and all the use cases for it, where it's removal for your opponent's creatures at instant speed, it's protection for your own creatures at instant speed. But you know what I didn't mention about what this card can do last time is that this card also easily gets rid of non sorry creature lands. So the other versions of this card, Brutal Cathar, as well as Skyclave Apparition that we've had in Standard, neither of those could reliably get rid of creature lands because Skyclave said non-land permanents, and Brutal Cathar only does it on your turn. So most of the time, their creature land is not activated. Now with Werefox Bodyguard, you do get to eat their creature land and keep it for as long as they can. You can keep this creature on the battlefield. So that ended up coming up in a draft where I had drafted this card because I've been lucky enough to play this twice in drafts, which is another reason why I've probably gone white. And that felt very good to be like, oh, sorry, you're not playing this
Ooh.
card anymore.
Yeah.
And when you do destroy it on your turn, it does come into play tapped and all that stuff. So I,
Yeah.
I'm happy with all the new ways I've found to play this card, and I think with the just injection of all these creature lands, that if this couldn't deal with those, I think that would be a knock against it. But because it can, bumps it up straight to a layup.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a good call out on the actually gets creature lands. One scenario that while you were just talking about that popped into my head that I feel like is just fun to call out now. If you're playing Explorer, uh, don't try to eat a Mutavault with this because
Mm-hmm.
Mutavault's a fox.
Yes, that's very good, as well as Safeless Haven. So both of those are shapeshifters. Um, they cannot get hit by
Faceless.
this.
Did you say
Huh.
safeless or faceless? Anyways,
That
faceless haven.
whatever I said is
Yeah.
probably wrong. Faceless Haven, yeah. That is actually really funny and annoying because
Yeah.
obviously the non-fox clause is so that you don't loop them, but it also makes those cards even better.
Yeah. It's definitely something that's going to happen to someone because this is for sure Explorer playable. And
Hmm.
so somebody is going to flash it in to try to eat a Mutavault.
I guess you could
Um,
just block the mutavault, but eat a token,
yeah.
block a mutavault.
Yeah.
Because
They're gonna like do the old pretend they knew and you
hmm,
know but
yeah, yeah, exactly.
when you see them stalling after they've played the bodyguard on arena, you know what happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So good. Um, Perfect, Jeff. Anyway, what is your layup?
Okay, so I hemmed and hawed about this for a while. I think last week you
Hmm.
might have got the opposite impression of the card I'm going to go with, but there were sort of two cards I was considering. That's why I wanted to defer to you because
Okay.
then if you took one of those two cards, I could take the other one. But I think in the end, I land on Mosswood Dread Knight
Yeah.
as my selection for my layup. We've talked about this before, but in case you haven't heard of it, didn't listen, and haven't played Arena
Or
any
talk to
standard, I
anyone.
guess.
Yeah.
Or yeah, Mosswood Dread Knight is a 3/2 for 2. It's trample. It has an adventure called Dread Whispers, which is 1 in a black, and it's you draw a card and you lose a life. And the nice thing about the Dread Knight is when it dies, you can cast it from your graveyard as an adventure. So there's a history of Wizards printing these like interesting creatures that kind of can come back from the graveyard forever, but it's like slow and dirtily. But none of them have ever been pushed like this. They're usually weird skeletons that like come
Hmm.
back tapped or something.
Yeah.
This is a 3/2 trample for 2, um, which is already pushing I'm interested.
Hmm.
And the adventure is fine. Like it's not good. You'd
Mm-mm.
never play Dread Whispers on its own, but stapled onto this, it's pretty solid. But then I actually love this recursion idea of, well, you're going to cast Dread Whispers just because that's how you bring this Dread Knight back. By the time this thing dies, you probably have 4 mana, so it's sort of like, you know, it's. I think of it very similarly to the 3/2 that comes from your graveyard. Um,
Tenacious Underdog.
Tenacious Underdog, yeah. And I think it
Hmm.
compares quite favorably to Tenacious Underdog. And so I think what we'll see is a lot of these black mid-range piles. We'll start seeing them sort of morph into Golgari mid-range decks,
Hmm.
with this card just being the all-star 2-drop that they've sort of needed.
Yeah. No, this card, you're going to see this everywhere. This is, I don't even have to wait until the end of the set to say that this was a home run slam
Yeah.
dunk pick. It's very
I've
good.
played a small amount of Standard and I've already run
Hmm.
into this card so many times.
Oh, yeah. It's just like the card to play, the card to beat. It's great.
And
Um,
it plays well too. Like some
mhm.
cards read well, and then when you play them, you're like, oh, actually, that's too slow. No, this card just
Nope.
is good.
Fits in perfectly. I think the numbers are right. It's a good one. It's good. Um, yeah. All right, Jeff. We're snake drafting this, as I tried to mention at the beginning. So you are up for 3-pointer. Surprise.
Okay. The 3-pointer I had some trouble with because there's a lot of cards that I just think are good, and then cards that are obviously bad.
Hmm.
And I didn't think there were so many sort of in the middle there. Um, I think what I did decide, I don't want to say it's a cop out, but what
Hmm.
I did decide to go with is just one of my faves that I think is powerful after playing with it a little bit, and maybe I'll post a deck list into the Discord.
Mm.
But I think I've talked about it in literally the past 2 shows we did
Okay.
that relate to this set. So here it is again. I'm gonna select Food Fight because
Right.
I love this card.
Hmm.
This is a 1 in a red enchantment. Artifacts you control, basically you can pay 2 to sack it to deal. Well, okay, 1 plus the number of food fights you control. So the first food fight lets you sack artifacts for 2, but
Hmm.
subsequent ones stack. And so then it's 3 and then it's 4, which is really neat because often enchantments like this, it's worthless to have a second one. Enchantments
Hmm.
that give things activated abilities.
Yeah.
Um, so this was a nice way to get around that because when I've been playing with this card, I'm often like, ooh, I should wait to get the second food fight down because then I'm going to deal
Hmm.
so much more damage. Um, but yes, I've been playing this card. I just crafted it. I was like, I need to try it now. I'm not going to draft. I did pick up a couple in drafts. Then I
Hmm.
crafted the last 2 and just made a deck. So I like it. I think it's powerful. And there's an outside chance that this is actually good.
I I'm very excited to see your food fight deck, um, because it does seem great, but I'm just really I I just want to see what you can do with it because it's definitely the kind of thing where I'm like, oh, that seems sweet. Next thing,
Oh, it's so basic right now. It's just like 4 of all the cards we talked about. It's like
yeah,
4 Sir Ginger, 4 Food Fight. It's
uh,
just like it's so
I,
fun, huh? And it's been
yeah,
doing well.
it's so fun. Well, if you hop right on that, these first episodes are so rough because picking your favorite cards for these things
Hmm.
um, can be difficult. Um, though this because my 3-pointer is a card that you obviously just mentioned as Sir Ginger, um,
Nice.
which I almost seems too powerful to me to be a 3 pointer, but it does
Yeah.
have 3 power, so I'm okay with that.
Yeah, there we
there,
go.
there you go. There you
Yeah.
go.
So I could have used Mosswood Dread Knight.
For your yeah, for your 3 pointer. Um, the thing about this card is that like I think it after playing with it, um, it definitely needs you need artifact synergy with it. Like it's
Yeah.
really not good enough. Like you know, there have been white decks that have played like the 2 mana 3/1 with flash that you can sacrifice to destroy a enchantment and artifact or whatever. But
Hmm.
that card was only good because it had flash and you had it was also a spell basically. This card doesn't do that and is very conditional with like needing like it gets really good if there's a planeswalker, but it's really bad if you don't have any artifact synergy because it dies to everything. Um, so it would need a deck, and I think that a food fight deck or a treasure deck or something where you're very you have to lean into this. You can't just put this into whatever deck you want, even though the mana cost says you can. Um,
Yeah.
after actually playing around with it a bit, I think it does need to have it's a little bit more specific than just all around good card, which is why I'm leaning. I mean, leaning. Why I decided it's a 3 pointer instead of a layup.
Yeah, I think this is a totally reasonable 3 point. I don't think
Yeah.
it's too strong. I was considering it as well. Actually, pretty much every card in my food fight deck was on the table for this
Yeah.
3 pointer option. I thought Tough Cookie was too strong, so I was like, nah, Tough Cookie's like obviously good. So,
For a 3 pointer, I think
yeah,
uh Tough Cookie's another card that I just love. That would be a good three
yeah,
pointer, I think. Like
yeah.
it's not obviously a layup, but
Oh, it's so
um
good though.
like that's if because if I well now we're just talking about tough cookie, but
Yeah, let's just
if
talk about Tough Cookie.
if people are just playing that in standard, that would be kind of a surprise to me. It'd be like, oh, this is sick! Like, what a cool standard format where you can actually play tough cookie and it gets
Mhm.
there. Um, so yeah,
Yeah, I think black green food might be a real thing. Like, I think that might
hmm
be a reasonable way to try to build green black mid range is
yeah,
sort of with the food theme.
hmm
And in that case, tough cookie is kind of a slam dunk, but um, maybe it's not. Maybe it's better to just do the Mosswood Dread Knight Shield Dread,
hmm
uh, like Rat Lord as your 3 drop kind of thing. But uh, yeah, the Rat Lord, another one I was considering, but I think it's too strong. Like it's kind of reminiscent of those that goblin that used to make things every turn. Um,
uh,
God, but anyways, it dominated its standard format at the time. Obviously, this one doesn't snowball the same way that one. So that one would
hmm
attack, and then it would get +1/+0 for each goblin you had, but it would make a goblin on combat. Um,
oh right, the Goblin Marshal or something.
yeah, there was one that was like a they remade it, but it was in Guilds of Ravnica. It was a different card, and it was worse. And then
Yeah,
the one I'm thinking of is the
is the better
original.
version one. Okay, so the one I'm talking about is not the good one. Copy that. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Um,
But like I've just seen people play the Rat Lord in their black mid range decks just as
mhm,
their 3 drop. I
yeah,
think kind of taking the Graveyard Trespasser slot,
because it eats
and
something from the graveyard, and
it's been
then
solid.
yeah,
I mean, for my deck in particular, where I
mhm,
run almost no removal and can't really deal with boards that go super wide that easily,
yeah,
I was just like, oh, I don't know if I could beat that
yeah.
when you play
That's
it on turn 3 on the play.
mhm,
Um, and like it's mildly annoying that you're exiling my whole graveyard every like um yeah, I think the rat's just kind of a good card. So there was a lot of cards like
mhm,
that, right? That are like traditionally we would think of them as maybe being in the 3 pointer slot, but
mhm,
then I'm like, is this too good? I don't know. It feels like it's too good to really
yeah.
use as a 3 pointer with a straight face.
I mean, like it's been all over the board, but I think that's totally
I mean, I
fine.
did put Lear in this category once,
It's
so
true, and so I think that we should also make an addendum of like maybe 3 pointers are also like, hey, you have a couple in your deck, or it makes the sideboard,
yeah.
that kind of thing. though neither of the cards we just talked about fit into that at all. Anyway, it's time for my half court shot. And,
Looking forward to this.
you know, Jeff, it's really hard to talk about cards you're really excited about when a set is starting and not
Mhm.
talk about the cards that you're actually going to be picking for your worthless slots. You know what I mean? Like,
Absolutely.
every time I'm looking at a card, I'm like, this is sweet. I want to talk about this right now. And in fact, when it comes time to pick our worthless slots, I'm like, shit. Um,
Already
I
talked about all the cards I
already
want to talk
talked
about.
about it. Yeah, exactly. So I'm going back. I'm double dipping. I'm just the whole run of it is just these are the cards I'm excited about. I don't want to fight it. Um, I think that my half court is not just this card, but what we were talking about is Ariette of the Charmed Apple is the real, you know, half
I
court
knew it.
shot. That's the real
Yeah.
one, you know, because that deck looks hard to put together and bad in standard, but
Mhm.
um, in combination with your suggestion,
I
which
love it.
is the asinine antics. That's the half court shots end up being like decks basically.
Mhm.
Um, if you don't know what I'm talking about, just go listen to the last episode because we talked about this for a long time. So figure out. I mean, obviously you can read the cards and figure out the combo, but I'm going to be playing Esper enchantments basically, and I get to play my Werefox in it, and I get to play well my other enchantment things. So I'm excited for it. It's gonna be great.
Yeah.
And it's gonna make it. I'm gonna win half 50%. No, 50% of my games is a lot. I was thinking like it's a half court, so it's half of the time I make it in. That doesn't make any sense,
Yeah.
but anyway,
Is that how it works?
no. Zach, I don't think you understand basketball.
Yeah. Have you watched basketball before?
All right, Jeff.
Um, I love that. I love me a combo deck that is only
Hmm.
good if my opponent has a ton of creatures.
Yeah.
That's that's what I want from my combos.
Yeah.
Uh,
So this is really good if you are if I'm behind.
yeah.
Which I'm going to be behind most of the time, I'm
Yeah.
sure.
We play a control deck. I don't know if my deck does anything, but
Mhm.
okay, so I again hemmed and hawed about this one a little bit, but I'm gonna bring up something. So I'm gonna name the card, and then I want to see if you know what I'm talking about. So
Okay.
the card that I've selected for my half court shot is Bramble Familiar.
Yes.
So this is one in a green for a 2/2. You can tap it to add a green. You can pay one in a green, tap it, and discard a card to return it to its owner's hand. Blah blah blah. It has an adventure called
Hmm.
Fetch Quest, and this is 5 green. Love that name, by the way. But you mill 7 cards, then you put a creature enchantment or land card from among the milled cards onto the battlefield. So do you know why I picked this card?
Because you want green to be able to be in standard. Let's see. You
Um,
probably you probably want it to fit into. It says, okay, is this in your food fight deck? Because you can go find a food fight.
no, but
Okay.
I like that, but
Yeah.
I don't have time. I don't have
Yeah,
time for that.
it's way too late in the game to find one more food fight.
Okay, so this is something I found out about yesterday.
Hmm.
Um, there is a Cascade deck in Standard.
Oh,
So there's a card called Invasion of Alara.
yes.
Now, Invasion of Alara basically it's an invasion. It costs one of each mana.
Hmm.
But when it comes into play, it lets you cascade sort of for CMC 4 or less.
Oh, are you doing that bullshit?
So you cascade. Now, the only card with mana value 4 or less in your deck. Actually, you're allowed one other one because
Hmm.
of the wording on Invasion of Alara. It's you get to pick two, and
Hmm.
then one goes in your hand and one gets cast for free. Um, so the only card other than one slot that's up to you in your deck that will fit this bill is Bramble Familiar. Now you get everyone's favorite interaction, where when you
Hmm.
hit Bramble Familiar off of a cascade, you're actually allowed to cast the adventure. You could cast the card and you could cast it in either possible
Hmm.
way. So you cast Fetch Quest. What you're hoping to do is basically put a giant creature. I don't know, maybe a Traxa, but don't let me tell you what to do.
Hmm.
But you put Itali, you put a Traxa, you put something like that. Or you can put, let me just look this up to make sure I have the name of it right. Cemetery Gatekeeper.
Oh yes.
No, not Cemetery Gatekeeper. Uh, the Black Gatekeeper.
Oh
uh,
right.
da, da, da.
Are they? Is it called Gatekeeper? No, no, no. It's just the black one that.
Oh, it's Cemetery something, right?
Yes.
Gatekeeper's not the. No,
Yeah, they're
it's
not all.
Cemetery Desecrator.
Yes.
So Cemetery Desecrator ETBs, you exile a card from a graveyard. What you can do is then remove X counters from a permanent. So if you have a
Hmm.
7-drop in your graveyard, which you probably do because you milled 7 cards, and your deck plays all 7 drops, you exile it, and then you remove 7 counters from Invasion of Alara. It conveniently has 7 health or whatever
Yeah.
that these sieges have. So it transforms then into Awaken the Maelstrom, which
Oh my
you
god.
get to draw 2 cards. You put an artifact from your hand into play. You create a token as a copy of a permanent you control. Distribute 3+1/+1 counters, and you destroy a permanent an opponent controls. And so basically, um, you pretty much should win the game. I would be hard to imagine a scenario where you evasion of Alara and do not win the game. Um, the rest of the deck you have to fill out with creatively with
Hmm.
very expensive cards that have
Hmm.
alternate ways to cast them that are not expensive. So the mana value has to be above 4,
Hmm.
and you're generally shooting for 7 because you want to exile it with your Cemetery Desecrator. So we're talking like channel cards.
Hmm.
We're talking the Virtue, the Black Virtue, that's your removal spell, but it's actually a 7
Right.
drop.
Okay.
Um,
Sure.
like that's the whole deck. It seems plausible.
Hmm.
Now, if you've ever played against this kind of stuff, you know it's really brittle. Like
Hmm.
it's not that hard to for a well-timed make disappear to really fuck everything up. But the deck seems like all the pieces are there. So I was like, I want this channel deck to be a thing, and I think there's an outside chance that this kind of shows up every once in a while. So that's why I selected Bramble
Bramble
Familiar
familiar.
as
So
my half court shot.
I I like it in the sense that it's very creative and cool. I hate it because I think that card interaction is so shitty, but
But
um
here's why I'm okay with it, right? There's no point where I said, here's how you cheat Invasion of Alara into play. Like
that's true.
you have to cast Invasion of Alara,
That's
and it's
true.
white, blue, black, red, green.
Hmm.
So the way you like trigger your big cascade combo is Invasion of Alara. So obviously you're playing like 5 color. That's how you get the names are just messing with me today. The removal spell that costs less by domain. That's
Oh,
like
ley
another
line
removal
of
spell you can play that won't fuck up your cascade.
yeah.
So you're playing this in that kind of shell. You have Herd Migration, like as your
Hmm.
another big expensive spell that you're casting for 2. It's kind of like taking that. Like realistically, this is probably a worse version of 5 color control,
Hmm.
but I think it's a way more
Cooler.
interesting one.
Yeah, it's less mid-rangey, which I like. I'm much
Yeah.
more interested in playing against this deck actually than
Right. Like I'm probably never going to build this for sure. Actually, for sure, because there's just too many wild cards that I don't want to spend. But
mhm.
I want other people to play this. I want to play against
Yeah.
it.
Well, that I had no idea about that deck. That's awesome. Um,
Yeah. When I came
and
across it, I'm like, we have to include this. Like,
oh,
we got to talk about this
absolutely.
because everything just lines up so well too. I love the Cemetery Desecrator removing the 7
That
counters from the invasion.
like this is the kind of thing that like when you think about magic decks and the weird kitchen table bullshit that people come up with, this is the type of deck that you end
Yeah.
up playing or kid play because it is like kind of bullshit. Oh, though, to be fair, no, this specific interaction is not something you'd find in kitchen table because
Yeah, because
people
nobody
won't know
would be
that.
like, oh yeah, you could probably just cast the other version of
Yeah,
the
yeah,
card when you're casting it into it.
but the Rube Goldberg kind of like, okay, if I build my deck in the very specific way where I played this card and then it unfolds, um, that reminds me of that. So,
It makes me think of Dexperado by MTG Remy. You've
oh,
ever seen
yeah, yeah,
if
yeah,
you haven't seen that video, go look it up. But it's basically just him making fun of players that try to do stuff like that.
yeah, uh, yeah. It's very good. All of MTG Remy stuff is amazing. Um,
Yeah.
But all right, Jeff, we also have a couple other slots in our Worth a Slot, which are cards that we believe are overrated and cards that we think are underrated in the set. And well, you're first up. What do you have an overrated card? Do you have anything that you're looking at or people are talking about and you're like, what the hell are you talking about? What the fuck is this? Like, why are you talking about this?
I do. So this
Mm-hmm.
is mostly just from I've been running into some, like I said, black green mid range. Been running
Mm-hmm.
into just some decks online, and they all seem to include this card. And I'm always kind of like, oh, oh, that doesn't seem worth the inclusion.
Yeah.
So the card that I'm talking about is Blossoming Tortoise.
Oh yeah.
I know this is like a high level, it's the mythic rare of the set, and a lot of people are very excited about this. What does this card do? This card seems like medium at best. And I can't imagine just jamming it into a black green mid range deck. Like
No.
if you have a reason to play this card, maybe like it's a ramp card or something, but it's 2 green for a 3/3. When it ETBs, you mill 3, then return a land from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped.
Or attacks. It does the
Or when
attack
it
thing too.
attacks, it
Yeah.
also triggers that. Yeah, it just never does because it's a 4 mana 3/3.
Yeah.
Activated abilities of lands you control cost 1 less to activate. So that's pretty good. Your creature land costs 1 less. That's
Hmm.
actually significant. And then it lands you control get +1/+1. Also good, but these kind of pumps are always way worse than they seem
Hmm.
because I can always kill this. So you're going to commit to a combat where those stats matter, and then I'm going to kill this, and then
Hmm.
your stats leave. And so, like, these things are always less good than they look. Creatures that, like, these weird pseudo lord effects. Like,
Hmm.
these effects are good when they're pumping your whole team. When they
Hmm.
pump, like, one creature that you have to pay for every turn, that's pretty bad,
It's
quote unquote,
really
lord
bad.
effect.
Yeah.
The only reason I've ever seen to play this card
Hmm.
is I did I did lose a game to this card,
Okay.
and my opponent had this card in play, and they activated one of their creature lands, and they equipped it, or not equipped, sorry, they aura'd it. They pantsed it up with
Pissed.
um God, what's the basically something that gave it fire breathing for a colorless mana, but it like has that I would have to look this up, but basically they did a combo where they gave the land the ability to fire breathe,
Hmm.
but it was free um,
Oh,
because of the tortoise's ability. So I just died, and I was like, okay,
that's cool.
all
Okay,
right,
that's a
yeah,
cool
I can
combo.
accept that one. Like,
Yeah,
I can see why you're playing that tortoise now. Um, Outside
that
of weird stuff like that, like I don't know, this card doesn't seem that good.
honestly, this is the type of card I haven't seen anybody excited about this, but it looked like the type of to me originally half court shot that you would like for your like what's his face? The Panther dude deck with the Jund lands go into your graveyard deck.
Oh
Um,
yeah. Ooh.
that's what I thought that this was originally. I was like, oh,
Yeah,
this looks
yeah,
like
yeah,
a.
yeah.
As soon as I saw like lands in your
Actually, I'm gonna use this as my
graveyard,
underrated card. Hold
yeah, yeah.
on.
But that's what I thought originally. I was like, oh, this looks like a card Jeff will pick for that. Cool.
Yeah,
And
it's one of
then
those classic weird cares about lands cards.
yeah, I'm not gonna really care about this too much. Jeff will tell me if it's good or not. Apparently, it's bad. So, yeah, fuck this card. Stupid card.
Soul of Windgrace, this is not.
Yeah, Soul of Windgrace. Yeah, it would just be in addition to that deck, I guess, as a way to mail extra stuff. I don't know. Yeah, that's I really want to see what that land pantsed up land deck is. That sounds cool.
Yeah, pants up land. Let me see if
Um,
I can find it just in the background here, but I'm trying to remember the name of the card. That's basically the combo. You put an aura on it that gives it fire breathing for one colorless, but it
mhm,
actually like gives that ability to the land or the
yeah.
creature. And
Mhm.
so because activated abilities of lands cost one less, it's
Boom.
just you can fire breathe as much as
But
you want. Now, it doesn't have
free.
trample or anything,
Yeah, so
so
you have to like just
the
get
land
through.
has to get through.
But I don't think any of the lands in that color get through. No, no, the land is the new land. It's good, right? Or the blue green one. Um that has trample. The blue green land has trample.
Yes. Okay.
So that will do it. Um if you try to do a witch's
Okay.
cottage or something, you can't.
Name of the card is Draconic Destiny. So it actually
Hey,
gives the land flying as well. It gives a plus
okay.
one plus one flying haste and fire breathing for one colorless.
Well, that was a card that we've talked about in the past. We love that card. Um,
Oh, some of us love that card.
okay, well, whatever. Let's talk about a card that everybody loved, or not everybody, but some specific people. And you know what? I'm pretty sure we talked about this on the show. I've talked about it to you, but I think it's really important to like continue with the vibe I'm on, which is rehashing things I've said in the past, but
Mhm.
stapling them to the first Sips episode to be like, this is a thing.
Yeah.
Um, and the most overrated card in this fucking set is Shatter the Oath. Get your head out of your ass, everybody. Shatter the Oath is horrible. All right? It's 3 black for a sorcery at common. It says destroy target creature or enchantment. And then you create a wicked roll token attached to up to one target creature you control. This card, stop talking about it. It's not news. It's not exciting. It's
Well, hold
just
on, Zach. This completely breaks the color play, and I think there's going to be huge ramifications. The fact that Zach, the fact that Black gets to destroy enchantments, um, I just think this is going to ruin Standard. Actually,
yeah, yeah, totally. It's gonna ruin Magic forever. Your commander decks, black can get rid of rest in pieces. Everybody, this card, you're never gonna like. The reason I have to say this right now is because you won't ever remember this card ever again. I have to cement it in first tips, and then we'll talk about it in the happy hour about how no one played this fucking card and how it's
yeah.
barely like in draft you can play like one maybe. Like this card is not good. And yes, colors
Correct.
can do lots of things at a cost, and specifically black does really powerful effects at a cost. 5 mana is at sorcery speed is a huge cost. That makes this
Yeah.
horribly unplayable, which means black can't in fact destroy enchantments because if you put this in your deck, you're dead. I don't know. Like
Yeah.
this chill the fuck out, people on Twitter. I still have to fight you on this. This card's terrible. Um, get over it.
Yeah. It's barely playable and limited.
Yeah,
Like card sucks.
it's bad. So that's my overrated for sure. And you know, as I said before, just keep it on the train of rehashing everything. My underrated is something that's it's something. Jeff, I gotta say it. I think that I was too harsh on Sleep Cursed Fae because I think I kind of like it. I think I like
I,
it.
I've played against it a few times. I'm like,
hmm
this card's not that bad.
It's pretty good. I had it a couple times. Turn one, Sleep Cursed Fae. You start hitting pretty quickly, and then they
Yep.
have to, you know, do something about it. This is it's pretty good. I do like it a lot.
Yeah. I've been playing against fairies quite a bit
hmm
actually, because like it's the hot new thing.
New
It's the
thing.
thing everyone wants to try
hmm
when the set comes out. And yeah, I lost a game where my opponent just had a couple of these, and I was just like, okay, I have to
Is
deal with
it?
that because I'm not going to kill them before those things come online.
Yeah. So
Um, I did win the match though, so I
so
don't know if that
there is that.
means.
But yeah, I do like the funny thing about Sleep Curse Phase that I first saw it, I thought it was amazing. Then realized that it didn't work the way I thought it did, and that I
Yeah,
thought it was horrible. And now after playing it, it's good. I think
and
it's
you're like, if it worked the way I thought it originally did, this card would be so fucking good.
yeah, exactly. It
Where
would
it
be
just like
so good.
untaps through the stun counters.
hmm So yeah, but this card's totally playable. I'm not surprised to see it being played in standard, and it seems sweet. I want to play it now, and I almost put it on my no pass list, but I changed my mind. I'm not sure if I need them, but I definitely want to play them. So that's a check on me. Sometimes you got to admit your mistakes, and I've grown as a person over the last couple weeks. All right, Jeff, bring us home.
All right, so I actually don't remember if I've mentioned this on the show before. So um, I could either be following in your footsteps of talking about a card I've already talked about or not. But I feel like the card that I'm going to label as underrated is Knight of the Sweets Revenge.
Yeah.
This is 3 and a green enchantment. When it ETBs, you get a food token. Foods you control can tap to add green mana. And then on top of that, you can pay 7, sacrifice it. Creatures you control get +X till end of turn. X is the number of food you control. Actually, it only is a sorcery. So I've seen rumblings. I've seen people posting lists or like YouTube videos um, of a black green food deck in standard, and I've run into black green food a couple of times. They never seem to include this card.
hmm
And to me, this is like the one of the reasons to play the deck. I think in that deck, this has very much like Wilderness Reclamation vibes, where it's a
hmm
4 mana enchantment that comes down, but it's essentially free because it gives you're gonna have a bunch of food, and so you're always going to be able to play this and then something else
hmm
immediately. And then if you untap with it, you just have so much mana, and it even gives you the way
To
to use
use it.
that mana and win the
hmm
game. Like just it's just built in. I think like if there's a food deck in standard that's competitive, this is the reason. Like this
hmm
is why it's competitive, because this just it just does it all. Um, the only like you know difference between this and wilderness reclamation is it wisely does not let you hold up counter magic after
hmm
casting it. Like it
Yeah.
doesn't, it forces you to be playing green cards. If this was just like add 1 mana of any color, can you imagine how busted this card would be?
Jeez. Yeah.
um yeah, everyone would be on sultai food or whatever and
Yeah.
just be jamming this and countering everything you do. And so that's thankfully not the world we live in, but I still
hmm
think this is just really good in constructed where you're going to be so efficient at generating the food early.
Totally.
Like stop playing the random draft chaff common that adventures for a food and then has a 3/2 and it's a 3 drop. Like, guys, stop playing that. Play this instead. This is much more powerful. This is much more appropriate in a construct deck.
Yeah. You know what? I think it's because people were shitting on this in draft, which I also don't think I agree with. I think this card's pretty good in draft. Like it's a really grindy match, and like a huge you need a huge attack to like really cement yourself into the I don't know, winning the game.
Yeah,
And I've played against this card where they started like accumulating so much food, like just shitting out food. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm gonna die soon to this. And so I had to use a removal spell on it. One of the white to destroy a non-land permanent, give them a 1/1.
right.
Um, but then they had like, if I didn't do that, a turn or two later, they had 10 food. I was like, that's insane. Like,
Yeah,
this is crazy. like, like this is really bad. I ended up losing the game
yeah.
anyway.
Get Crater Hoop.
Yeah,
But you lose the
basically
game because you blew a removal spell on this,
on an
right? Like,
enchantment.
yeah,
So yeah, it did not go well. Um, but yeah, I still think this card is if can build. It's a build around great card, and
yeah. I haven't had the luxury of playing this card in draft yet, but I would
mm,
play this in draft for sure.
for sure.
At least give it a try. It's powerful enough, right?
Yeah, I think
Especially in, like you said, these slow grindy games.
yeah, especially when you're the food player. Like yeah, go ahead, gain your 12, 15 life, and well, obviously you'll have to do that after you do the whole fun stuff, or instead of, or have to decide. But like
Yeah,
you can figure out how to work that line of having enough food so your deck continues to work, but also have enough life so the game's not over. Um, Having one or two copies of this card, I think, will be great. Um, yeah, I think it's good. There, that's what I said. Um, well, fantastic, Jeff. This is we got a good list here. I'm
yeah,
excited to see how everything goes with this, and if we'll be right or if we will be wrong. But Jeff, let's go to last call to talk about the beer we had this evening, and see if we pick it or not. I guess.
I know what I'm gonna pick.
Yeah. Um, so as always, we rate our beers on a scale from bronze to mythic, just like the tiers in Arena. And this has nothing to do with what tier you are in currently, because every player is in a different tier at a different time. So it's just a fun way to rate beers. With that being said, bronze beers are trash. They're horrible. We hate them. We spit them out. Ugh. I had one the other day, actually, yesterday, and I actually literally poured it down the drain. It was
Oh, I'm
horrible.
sorry to hear that.
Yeah, it was really sad.
No, it wasn't the mystery beer, was it?
It was not the mystery beer. I posted about a beer in our Discord. No, the mystery beer was like a sour. It's the one I drank immediately after that, which
Mhm.
was I don't know what I was expecting. It was like a beet beer.
Oh, okay. Well, this one might be on you.
It was it was a collaboration. I thought it'd
What
be
do you
cool.
like, Dwight?
Yeah,
From
it
The
it
Office.
tasted like dirt. Like
Yeah.
it was bad.
All right. Silver beers are just bad
Mhm.
or uninteresting.
Yeah,
So they're they're better than bronze. You're not gonna throw the whole beer out, but they're just bad, or like a macro brew maybe could find its way here.
yeah. Which is a weird rating, but some microbrews are really good, but they're everywhere,
Yeah.
so you're not going to tell anyone about it. Um, Gold beers are fine. You definitely won't. Well, you could tell people to kind of like, stay away from
Mhm.
that one. Like it's okay. Like try it once and that's enough.
Yeah. Platinum, these are super solid. You'll drink these again. You'll like them. It's good beer.
Yeah, diamonds are exceptional. You like them a lot, and you drink them often.
And Mythic, these are the best of the best. These are the beers that are like what beer is about for you.
Hmm.
These are your go-tos, your favorites, your all-timers.
Yeah. Oh, buddy. So let's talk about cherries aged like Grace.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, as far as like saison vibes go, um, it was giving me a little bit more like really nice sour vibes.
yeah,
Sorry, I just licked the bottle like really intensely. Uh,
very seductive.
Not on purpose. Go check out our YouTube video if you want to see that. But
Please,
anyway,
Zach, I'm married.
yeah. um, but yeah, this is. I think this guy freaking just knocks it out of the park and he goes right into the basketball hoop. This is a home run slam
Yeah,
dunk. These beers are good. These are very
yeah.
good.
This beer is really good. I was gonna make the same comment that it felt a little more like a sort of fruity sour to me than
Hmm.
a funky saison
Hmm.
that's been barrel aged or and whatnot. That being said, it's freaking delicious.
Yeah.
Uh, I was gonna give it diamond. I
I
don't know if that's right. I'm mostly like holding it up to it the pre like last week's
well, last week's was
bar, and I
like,
think I liked last week's better. So then I'm like, well, then this is diamond.
yeah,
It's like I don't know if that's totally fair. Like maybe they're both mythic, and this one's just a lower mythic. Like maybe the other one is numbered mythic, and this one is like
yeah,
percent mythic.
yeah.
Um,
Maybe I
I'm gonna give
I
it diamond. I think.
I agree. I think I'm going to give it diamond because last week's from the same brewery. Obviously, that's why we're talking about it. Um, that Goza is like the best one I've ever had,
Yeah,
and this one doesn't feel like a saison necessarily. So, um, but delicious fresh cherries, very light, and still does taste like beer.
yes, this
But
is like what I want a sour to be like.
yeah,
It's exactly like this.
it doesn't taste like warheads. There's nothing really artificial about it. It does once again feel like the type of bottle you could open and pour and you know uh, have as a drink for your guests at your house and not
Yeah,
feel like you're slumming it with the beer crowd.
yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. Do
So
you want a beer?
yeah. Oh, I just crack open a beer. We be at the
Yeah,
barbecue, which there's a time and a place for that, and there are beers that are very good at doing that. This
yeah,
one pairs very nicely with uh, the fancy charcuterie board and your very exotic, interesting, funky stuff. Um, Even though this itself is not funky. Um,
yeah. Yeah, and like you said, another knockout from
yeah,
Barrel Heart. So,
Barrel Heart.
and they have so many options that I feel like I'm gonna have to poke my head back in there and pick up a few
Mm,
more.
yeah. Uh, we should definitely do everything they make.
Just every
So
single one.
yeah, yeah. We'll have to dip into our Patreon funds for that, I think, but we
Yeah,
could definitely do it. Um,
just show up, be like, we want all of the beer,
do we have all of it?
just all of it.
Yeah, it's great. Really good stuff. Check them out. Go check out Barrel Heart. We don't say that
Barrel Heart,
often about.
Barrel Heart in Ancaster, Ontario.
Yes, um, delicious. Anyway, Jeff. Wow, it's already closing time. It's crazy.
Yeah,
I know.
bittersweet.
Bitter sweet, like this beer. Actually, no, sour sweet, like this beer. I saved a little bit for the end. Not because I
Smart.
not because I didn't want to drink it, but anyway, if you would like to talk to us, you can always find us at Arena Regulars on the website that used to be called Twitter and Instagram.
You can also find us on MTG Arena. We might be under the username Arena Regulars Podcast.
And we might be playing some crazy food deck. Um, if you want to talk to me personally, you can find me at Zulberg. That's ZeulBerg on all the different places. But Jeff, where can they find you?
Best place is on our Discord channel. I go by at regular Jeff there, and planning on posting my food fight deck list soon. So if you want to check that out, make
Ooh,
sure to go to our Discord channel. The link should be in the show notes.
yeah, yeah. Also, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. Follow us on Spotify. Leave us a review there. Go to YouTube. Hit all the buttons that do things on that platform. And really just say, hey, guys, I like the show. That makes us feel very good. And also, hey, if you're interested in us doing like duplicates of episodes as we've done in the past, or have any ideas for us, we'd love to hear all of your feedback and
Yeah.
all of your thoughts.
Or if you just want to come in and say, hey, Jeff, you're an idiot. Blossoming Tortoise is the best card of all time. Let's hear that too.
Yeah.
Bring it on.
Or, hey, Zach, the color pie should stay the color pie. Don't let other colors do stuff.
Yeah. Come on, Zach.
Because I'm ready to fight you, and I'm going to, well, I'm going to hurt you with my words. This has been the Arena Regulars.
Reminding you that if you're wondering which cards from the set Zach really likes, it's exactly the same as last time. Same ones.
Good night.
All right, that's fine.